All right, click the links for the subscribe star and the various other platforms. So, short version of this is September box office has the worst level. They're like $100 million in the hole for this 1 month in 25 years. And if you're looking at the screen, you can see the 3 films that are their leading films, I guess. The short version is, why don't you just give people what they want, and what typically sells well, what gets tickets sold for theaters, because you've got to have a distribution network, otherwise you're not going to have these high budget films without theaters. The streaming services only go so far that you've got to give the theaters what they want, and what sells in theaters is family friendly films, which Disney used to be about 20 years ago, and action adventure, those big kind of dumb blockbuster stuff that sells around the world, like Transformers, movies that may not get any kind of critical score, but can sell well everywhere because it's just a bunch of pretty people running around with cool special effects and a lot of explosions. You don't have to speak the language to really understand the film. It's at the time, I think Megan Fox was running through the desert. Her big boobs are bouncing around, and behind her is explosions. And I think of that one clip, and there's like transforming CGI robots in the background. That one clip is pretty well like what people mean when they're talking about a film that kind of transcends language. It's that kind of thing. Just a bunch of cool stuff going on. There's the plot. They went and they some good CGI fought some bad CGI, but that's generally what does really well. And how do you review a movie like that? You can't. I mean, it did what it was supposed to do, but it's not a movie. It's not a. I mean, it's just like. It's a way. It's like a very strictly a commercial enterprise, almost totally. Okay, so family-friendly films. You go, okay, family-friendly films. That's what people want to see. You go, oh well, these are the new families. These are the new families. These the BLT type of stuff. And yeah, people don't really agree with you on that. Oh well, they should. Otherwise, they're bigoted. Yeah, okay, whatever. I mean, you keep using these words, but it's not selling tickets, which it should be your primary goal. And the primary goal is not selling tickets so much, it's to push propaganda, which propaganda is only effective when people watch it. So the 3 films is this one film, Bros, which I think is $5 million plus so far over their weekend, which it was supposed to make twice that the opening, and it's going to lose between $30 and $40 million. So that's a pretty serious loss. That's how underperformed it is, and you can kind of extrapolate out the graph of and they tried to save it. They tried to save it and go like, Mary Sue was writing articles like, straight men need to see this movie. Why would straight men want to see a movie? It's not just a romantic comedy. I mean, like a gay comedy would be one thing. A romantic, it just doesn't click. It just doesn't click. Like, there's a lot of straight men, I think. I don't know how straight women respond, but the straight men have this reaction where it's a visceral reaction, where you see, there's a scene, I'll show you. So they're not dirty images. These 2 images are exemplify the film. They're instant, and I thought that E, if you're looking at the bottom part of the screen, I thought that E was an L because that little biblical slip of the brain there. So these 3 images, the rainbows, the balloons, the whatever he is, BLT person, zero interest in this. The only thing I can say is like very low body fat, so he's probably not touched a carb in the past year, but zero interest. And then the next image is active, going the other direction. This is just not what straight people want. Because while they might consider this as, I don't think it's Disney, but it's like they consider this the new. Then family structures need to change, and it's like, yes, we get it. You Bolsheviks are trying to destroy these things, but nobody believes you. That nobody's on board with that. It's a very small percentage of people who think families are bad. We're pro-family, pro-extended family, in-group preference, tribalism, this kind of stuff, like this found family. I've talked about it in comics quite a bit. It's a communist technique or a Bolshevik technique of, they want you to be rootless. They want you to abandon your blood tribe, your blood family, and reject your intolerant, bigoted father for some BLT POC family that's not of your genetic heritage. It's like, well, yeah, that's bad storytelling because it just goes against the human experience. And so you don't have to be some far right nationalist type to say the things I'm saying. It's like, that's just the common human experience. It doesn't make sense to that, like this plucky band of found family people forming this new tribe. It's like that doesn't make sense. You're coming from a tribe. You already have a way of life that you've evolved and adapted to. Like, the better thing would be to stay in your own tribe and try to guide it in a direction you want it to go to or improve it. But you wouldn't abandon like thousands of years of history of connection to these people. It's like that's crazy. That's just bad storytelling. But Hollywood and comic books does it all the time. I should do a special on it, the trip. It doesn't make sense because it's like you're abandoning thousands of years to create this new story starting point, and they do it in movies all the time, where you've got a bunch of like a visibly diverse scene, like in The Hobbits or in Rings of Power, or in Rings of Power is The Hobbits, or in scenes like The Gunslinger when they made the movie, or even in Andor. It's like you got different groups of people who are visibly different together, and then you look at it like, so did they all just come together yesterday because they all look visually distinct? And it's like, oh, we realize it's bad storytelling, but it's woke and diverse. It's like, yeah, but the bad storytelling is really kind of the key thing, because you're telling a story. And they go, oh, but woke has to be the key. Just suspend your disbelief. Like, I don't want to suspend it that far. I don't want to, because I think most people are kind of slowly cluing in to the fact, like, who's making these movies. Like, we know what their motive is. Like, a lot of people are waking up to what's going on behind the scenes. And anything that's anti-family, most people are going to look at and realize, oh, we're dealing with demon people if they're anti-family. Anyway, so the next two movies are The Woman King. Oh, so keep in mind, Bro's going to lose $34 million. That's will it teach him a lesson? No, absolutely not. The Woman King is probably not going to break even. That'll be my prediction. So it'll lose a few $1 million. I'm just guessing. Maybe. I'll go with that. It's if it has to, like, to break even, it has to go over $100 million. And if you extrapolate the line of where it's doing in the theaters, it's not going to do that. So you're going to lose a few $1 million on that. But it's not a crushing loss like Bros is going to be. It's telling the history of the Dahomey tribe. And when they interview the actor Davis and the other actors, they go, yeah, we're telling a historical, fictionalized history. It's like, oh, okay, but, like, the crux of the story is going to be accurate, right? Oh, no, because it makes the Africans look bad. Yeah, but that's actually what happened. I mean, like, that's just human history from the New World Aztecs sacrificing people to the Africans sacrificing people to the Europeans sacrificing people. It's like, yeah, everyone did that, but the narrative nowadays is no, only fair-skinned European people can be bad. But that's not reality. And when you try to tell a story that's so far out of whack, it's not a story, it's just propaganda. Like, people clue into this. And the people who have seen this movie and given it 99% on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff, those scores are accurate for them, because the people who are paying to see this movie want to see this confirmation. They want to see this story where they're the good guys. You go, yeah, actually, the real world, the English and the French, I think, were fighting them to stop them taking a carbon-based workforce without payment and human sacrifices. They were actually went to war to continue that, because the Dahomey tribe knew it was very profitable to sell not only to Brazil and whatnot, but also to sell internally to their own people. And they also, unfortunately, had a little bit of human sacrifice. Oh, you mean I get it. They're fighting the British, the Dutch, the whoever, the French. They're sacrificing those dudes, right? No, not so much. Which, you can understand war, right? I mean, just lean into it. No, they're actually kind of sacrificing people who looked quite a bit like them. Oh, the thing to do is, like, you can tell the story, you just got to lean into it. You go, like, this is what people did. Now, here's why they can't lean into it, because of cultural Marxism, Frankfurt School, Bolshevism, all that kind of stuff, which I say all the time. Because they have a narrative that people who look like you and I are to blame for what other people did, at another time. It's like, we're not to blame, and we don't care any more than you should care, or to be like, if you're of a New World, Central American or Mexican, it's like, you shouldn't give a rat's ass about human sacrifice that someone else did. Like, yeah, they might be somehow related to you. Maybe some might be related to you, but probably not. I mean, the people who are the puppet masters and pulling the strings, whether it's European, Aztec, or African, they're not us. Like, you get to realize, like, the old meme about we were in positions of greatness in the past. Paraphrase. Most people weren't, because that's just how the numbers work. it's like you could say that about if you're Irish and you envision yourself as some Irish leader dressed up in furs, and you were the boss. It's like, yeah, statistically that wasn't likely to happen. You're probably just an everyman, a farmer, a rancher, or something like that. Because that's just how the numbers work. It's going to be like one guy in charge of a few thousand guys, and that's around the world. So it's like, no, we were not in positions of greatness. Very few people were, and you might be genetically related to them, but you're not to blame for them, no matter who you are, European, Aztec, or African. But there's a narrative now pushed by these globalists who are pushing this narrative that, oh, well, only one group is to blame for what other people did, hundreds of years ago. You're like, but they're not. I mean, logically, you can't make that. You can't make us believe that. And ultimately, the pendulum is going to swing back, and it's a trip. So the thing is, they can't lean into that for this African movie with the Dahomey to say this is what we did. We continued to do these horrible things even after the Europeans went to war to try to stop us because it was profitable. We were selling, what you'd call your kinsmen for profit, and also sacrificing them to the gods because that was what we did. It's that's life. That was what other people did. You just got to accept it and move on with it. But they can't do that because to forgive them for that means you also have to forgive the Europeans for whatever they might have done. And they won't do that even if logic tells them they have to. Because logic. Anyway, so when she meets this French general or English general or something, he's returning a prisoner to her, and so she whips out her sword, cuts off his head, and then licks the blade of his blood. And nowadays you might look at that, and it's kind of an impressive scene. It's that would make an impressive scene in a movie. I don't know if they did that in a movie. Somehow I doubt it. That she's deleting a POW and then licking the blood. That was just what people did. Or that's what she did, that the Dahomey tribe did. It's that's a part of the culture. That's not good or bad. It just is. You don't have to put a judgment call on a lot of this stuff. And then she's walking around with the head as a token. And the English guy who turned over the prisoner was, made such an impression on him that he drew a pretty well drawn image of her walking around with this dude's head. And that's the real story. It's not told that she's some brutal savage, because everyone around the world did, maybe not exactly that, but they did this very similar things. It's what do you think swords are for? Swords and spears. It's humans have been using that stuff for years, but they have a narrative to push now, that it's just so far out of whack that you make this movie, and then as soon as you go online, you're oh, so you go online now and they're trying to cover, they're trying to soft pedal the Dahomey history. And maybe the first two articles soft pedal it, but eventually you find a real article and you're oh, okay, come on. It's you just stop with this kind of stuff. And then the last film that's partially responsible for this $100 million hole in September is Don't Worry, Darling, which is some kind of tale about the 1950s. It's just basically fair-skinned men, bad, of course. But it's not going to, that movie is actually going to make a profit where the other probably going to make a profit where the other two are not. People look at that and go, oh yeah, so 1950s, clean, safe neighborhoods, people stayed at home, and the men went out to work, and you took care of the kids, and you talked to the neighbors, and you had a community, and you went to church, and you took part, and you were building, America was building a culture. America was going a certain direction in the 50s. It's was it perfect? No human society anywhere on earth is perfect. But to look around now compared to the 50s, oh my God, how horrible. They had to wear dresses and stay at home and take care of things. Yeah, what a living nightmare. Oh, yeah, so instead, the alternative is, oh, well, I'm a single cat lady, work 60 hours a week, and I'm going to die alone. Oh, that's much better. Thanks, feminism. Most people would look at the 50s and go, yeah, it wasn't perfect. Look at modern year and go, oh, dear God. Oh, how badly have we effed up. Can we go back to the 50s? But it wasn't perfect. People use epithets. Yeah, they use them now too. But 50s, you had clean, safe neighborhoods. You had people who knew each other. You didn't have the country wasn't just a pure economic zone controlled by the worst people on earth, these, globalist types. Yeah, what a horrible life it would be to let the kids play out all day, safely, have communities where people looked out for each other. It's no, it wasn't, I'm not trying to Wakandaize it. It wasn't that, but was it a lot better? Absolutely. Of course, it was before my time, but even in my time, I can look back and go, yeah, that was a lot better than modern day. Because I see modern day and I remember what it was like as a kid. I'm oh my God, the high trust society we once had is gone. Sucks. Sucks. I mean, I don't want to get too off topic into Odyssey territory, but anyway, so this is why the 3 films, this month of September is the worst month in 25 years, because you're not giving the customer what they want. They want action, adventure, and they want family-friendly films, and most families do not view BLT stuff as family-friendly, or a movie about the 50s, which is kind of like core family, insulting the 50s as being family-friendly. The 50s were better than they are now. Like family, like we know what it is, and we know what Hollywood is, and hopefully people wake up to it and realize like you're gonna have to make your own movies. Like Comicsgate, they made their own comics. You can't support the industry of the same industry that cheered Weinstein and Woody Allen and Roman Polanski, and like they knew about Weinstein for decades. And he's not the only one. He's just one name. He's not the only one. It's like, oh, so did you set up some kind of oversight board to get rid of the future Weinsteins? Or do you just go back to being silent and making money to sell propaganda while these guys abuse, women in Hollywood and then fly to Epstein's Island to abuse children? Oh, yeah. Oh, and then at the same time, you're lecturing us while you fly on private jets that we need to, like, take the bus while you guys have, literally private jets that burn, liters per second of kerosene. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to take. The Martha's Vineyard crowd is like it's all the same thing. It's all just comes together. I should do a live stream so I can be honest for once and then just delete it afterwards. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, check out the subscribe star. See you guys all next episode.